Hello once again. Welcome to Iggy's Toy Parade and Soldier Review. This is your host, Iggy. Yay. Today we're going to look at a couple figures. On the top shelf we have some figures made by a company, HAT, H-A-T, and below that is Zouves made by Replicants. So let's start off with these figures made by HAT. Now, on the box of HAT figures, it will show that there's 16 figures in 4 different poses, that they're designed in the United States and manufactured in England. Secondly is Replicants. And Replicants originally were distributed by Marksman, and then later I think Replicants started distributing their own product. And these also are Civil War Zouves. Now, both sides during the Civil War had Zouves, although the Union is more noted for having Zouves in the early part of the war. They had distinctive uniforms that were influenced by French designs. Some people don't realize that the French had quite an influence on uniform design in the mid-19th century. It wasn't until the Franco-Prussian War that the influence of French clothing design for the military shifted to more Germanic uniforms. And the reason for that is probably obvious to you, because the Germans won and the French lost. Now, these figures here, there are only 4 poses. You'll notice that the cap that they're wearing, which looks like something you would wear to bed, it's a skull cap with a tassel on it. And it's not very well defined in these figures. I don't know if you can see if it's clear or not for you, but it almost looks like they're wearing a head wrap of some sort, like a turban or something, which Zouves had many different forms of headgear, some looking like a stocking cap, some that looked more oriental in design, so to speak. I used to wear, when I would go to sleep at night, I would wear a cap that had a tassel on it. And I used to enjoy that cap quite a bit, but I finally sold it with the rest of my Civil War gear. But you could say, since this is influenced by French military design, let's see if I can move this over here so you don't have to see the skillet. I'm in the kitchen, of course. My bedroom not having much room to set things up like this. But let me give you a close-up instead of me just blabbering on about it, so that you can see the detail is kind of sparse in this regard. Now, my grandmother, one of her relatives, or possibly 2, but I think the tintype is of her relative and his friend, and they were in an Indiana Zouave unit. I think it was an Indiana unit. I'm not positive, though. I don't have much information on him. I do have the service records of my ancestor on my father's side, but not on my grandmother's side. Just his image, which it seems a pity to me that, here this guy, my ancestor, served in one of the greatest American conflicts in U.S. history, and I don't know anything about his service record. I don't even know his first name, and that doesn't seem right to me. but research has been difficult because records were lost in a church fire. So we don't know a whole lot about him, just his picture. I had mentioned that these were influenced by the French, and the French were influenced by, I think, a tribe in Algeria, the Tuaregs, Taureg, and I think that's where these uniform designs come from. North Africa, at the very least. And you could say, as they did in later years, c'est la pantalon rouge. L'esprit du corps, c'est la pantalon rouge, which means the spirit of the corps is their red pants. And you can see that they did wear red trousers, and their coat and vest would have been blue with quite a bit of trimming on it. When I was in Civil War group, we had a company of Zouves bivouac next to us, and we teased them without mercy, calling them circus clowns. And they'd walk by and we'd go, Zuzu, Zuzu, which is not to be mistaken with Zulu. That's a whole different ball game right there. We ended up playing them a game of horseshoes because they got angry at us and challenged us to a game of horseshoes. And I think I actually participated in the game, although I didn't have any ringers. I'm not very good at sports, as I mentioned once before, or many times before, probably. So they would wear like gaiters over their shoes and baggy red trousers with a close-fitting blue vest and perhaps like a shell jacket, which has more buttons than a regular sack coat, which only has 4. The short jacket that they wore probably would have had more, but I don't know how many they would have had. Maybe 8 buttons or 10, I'm not sure. Their traps or accoutrements would have been the same as the enlisted volunteers. The ammunition box, canteen, haversack, bayonet, and scabbard. They would have carried a 1861 Springfield musket. Although Enfield muskets also entered into service because there were so many men entering the army that they had to purchase weapons from overseas. It wasn't just the Confederates that bought Enfields. The Union bought a small quantity as well. Now, the second group of Zouave soldiers is by Replicants. And again, I confused these with marksmen because that's who were distributing them. They did not manufacture these. These were manufactured in England by a company called Replicants. And there's a figure here that was really confusing me, and I'm going to show it to you now. This one here is like, what is on his rifle? And I thought, is that flash? And you say, oh, come on, Iggy, that's a big piece of flash if that's what it is. But check this out. I got something else to show you, and then you'll go, hey, maybe that is flash. What did I do with the figure that had the large piece of flash on it? Was it this one? No. Now I can't remember which one it was. Is it this one? No, oh, I should have. Oh, it's got to be this one. No. I promise you, one of these figures had a really big piece of plastic hanging from it. And now that I want to show it to you, it's going to make me look at each one. Oh, is this? Yeah, this is it. Wow. Okay, See that hanging from his hand? That's not a cloth or a rag or anything. That's plastic flash where the injected plastic bled a little bit from the mold. And that's what causes that. Any markings on the bottom? No, the figures don't have any markings. So I'm thinking that this is supposed to be on there, but I'm not sure why. It's like, is he surrendering? If so, why is he firing his pistol? Why is he carrying a pistol and a rifle? When you're on the march and you have to march 18 miles, you want the weight you're carrying to be as little as possible because it causes a lot of fatigue when you're carrying heavy weight. You know, you're just your cartridge Bosch. What's a Bosch? I think Bosch was a bounty hunter in Star Wars. The cartridge box could weigh quite a bit because, you know, they had lead bullets. So you would want to cut back on the weight. So I don't think a man. Now, in the early days of the war, they probably carried knives or daggers, rather, and pistols and all sorts of things which weren't necessary. Although I would think in camp life, a small knife would be very useful, you know, for cutting your salt pork and cutting string, whatever it might be. I saw a guy on the march, the sole of his boot had come off and he tied it onto the upper part of his shoe with string. And you know, that looks kind of authentic like that. I imagine Confederates were forced to do that. Although, you know, a lot of Confederates had the supplies, but the states would not give it to the national government. They reserved it for their own state troops, or they had difficulties in getting transport. The South was really hurting for wagons and horses and also rail transportation in the last year of the war. So they weren't able to deliver a lot of things to the frontline troops. But the states were very jealous of the national government, and it makes you wonder how the Confederacy could have survived so long when the various states thought of themselves almost as being independent. Georgia especially was like that. But here you have it, Union Zouves on the top. Many different states had Suaves, such as New York and others, Indiana, and whatnot. But most of these, by 1864, these guys were pretty much gone. All right, guys, that's it for Iggy's Toy Parade and Soldier Review. I want to thank you once again for getting Iggy with it. And once more, we have a quick review. Hat, H-A-T, Industries. Hat Industries made these plastic Zouaves up here. You still can get them at Classic Toy Soldiers. I looked it up, but they weren't in red. They were in a like tan color. And then these Replicants, I'm not sure if these are still available. I didn't go into the Replicants website to look at what they were still featuring. So they may or may not be retired. So that's what I've got for you. Replicants and Hat. And these are United States volunteer infantry in Zouave uniforms. They are very suave in their Zouave. I imagine that spelled two different ways. Anyway, thanks, guys. I'll see you in my next video, okay? So thanks for getting Iggy with it. Make sure you enlist in the Iggy Army and hit that subscription, whatchamacallit, and also the notification bell. Okay? That's it. I'm going to say Auf Wiedersehen, or maybe I should say bonjour, since we have French influences here. Bye.